All right, it's a Jays playoff edition of Spark Sports, and boy, oh boy, we've got ourselves a series. The Blue Jays have tied it up at twos after an 8-2 statement win in Seattle, but this wasn't just a road upset, it was a clinic. A team built for October, walking into T-Mobile Park for the fifth straight time as an underdog, and walking out looking like the favorite. Seattle, once again, struck first, and for a moment, it felt like the Mariners had full control of this game, but that feeling did not last long as Andres Jimenez once again turned on a sinker for the second night in a row, flips the script, a two-run blast that drained the noise right out of the building. And from that moment on, the game belonged to the Blue Jays. And that's without even mentioning the story of the game. The 41-year-old Max Scherzer, he wasn't throwing his best stuff tonight, but what he was throwing was good enough for 5 2/3 innings, just 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and a total command of the ball game on the mound for the Blue Jays. Behind him, Toronto's defense was airtight, flawless bullpen, and every adjustment they made tonight paid off. This is what informed baseball looks like. The Jays are now 3-1 on the road, 4-1 as underdogs this postseason, and haven't lost in Seattle this year. So we head to game 5. Everything's on the line. Guzman versus Miller, analytics versus adrenaline, the math meaning the moment, and the Mariners searching for the answers, while the Jays, it looks like they already have them. This is Spark Sports, Blue Jays playoff edition. Let's play ball. All right, so let's walk through how this one played out in Seattle. For the first inning and a half, Seattle looked sharp. The crowd at T-Mobile was loud. The Mariners were locked in, and Max Scherzer seemed a touch off of his rhythm. That tension broke in the bottom of the second inning. With 2 strikes and nobody on, Josh Naylor stepped in against Scherzer. The veteran tried to change speeds with a changeup over the plate, and Naylor made him pay. He stayed compact, squared it perfectly, and sent it over the center field wall for a solo shot. The ball, it says traveled 394 feet. It looked further than that. And Seattle's crowd absolutely erupted, taking an early 1-0 lead, and the building came completely alive. Scherzer takes a moment to reset, doesn't panic, just circles the mound, takes a breath, and gets back to work. And that composure would end up defining the rest of this night for the Blue Jays. When the Jays came to the bat in the top of the third, the game completely flipped. IKF led off with a sharp single to right, setting the table for Andres Jimenez. Once again, Jimenez jumped on a sinker from George Kirby and sent it over the right field wall for a 2-run homer. And just like that, the Jays went up 2-1, and the air seemed to drain from the crowd as quickly as it built. That swing changed absolutely everything about this game, about this series, not just on the scoreboard, but in the approach. The Jays had made a clear adjustment from earlier games, stopped chasing the first pitch sinker. Through 3.5 innings, the Jays were noticeably far more patient, forcing Kirby to throw extra pitches and disrupting his rhythm. After the Naylor homer, Scherzer locked in. He shifted away from challenging hitters up in the zone and started painting corners with a mix of fastballs and curveballs. And over the next 2 innings, he faced 7 batters and threw first pitch strikes to 6 of them. He definitely wasn't overpowering anyone. He was just outsmarting them. Early count curveballs, late count changeup, and very precise location when he needed it. The Mariners' contact quality dropped off very sharply, and Seattle didn't record another extra base hit until the 6th inning when Scherzer left the mound. Behind him, Toronto's defense was airtight, clean fielding, crisp relays, and no mistakes, really. The difference in the body language also extremely clear. Scherzer looked like he had his team on his back. Seattle looked like they were being pressed. And by the 4th inning, Toronto takes full control with a runner on second. George Springer rips a line drive down the left field line for an RBI double, his 4th of the postseason, scoring IKF and extending the lead to 4-1. And this is a product of preparation for the Blue Jays. Toronto, their staff had keyed in on Seattle's tendency to open innings with fastballs when ahead in the count. And the Jays waited for those perfect pitches and punished them when they came. And this was textbook execution from a team that trusted its scouting reports completely. And by the seventh inning, Seattle was hanging on by a thread. Bullpen was active and the energy in the park completely cooled. Then Vladimir Guerrero Jr. steps up. He got the slider that stayed up. He crushed it to right center for his 5th home run of the postseason. And that ball left at over 100 miles an hour and cleared the wall easily. The score jumps to 6-2. The crowd falls silent, and everything shifts from then on. Scherzer's night ended at 5 2/3 innings, 5 strikeouts, and 2 earned runs. Obviously not dominance on paper, but very much a huge performance for him in this position. He managed the game with tempo, trusted his defense, and never let the game speed up on him. The Jays bullpen took over and closed things down smoothly. Every run, every decision that was made, every adjustment actually made sense. Got to give it to Schneider in this one. The Jays came in with a plan, executed it, and forced Seattle to chase the game from behind after the 3rd inning. And when it was over, the numbers told the story. Toronto 8, Seattle 2, a road win that wasn't just earned, it was engineered. And if I feel like if you're looking for a reason that the Jays owned Game 4, I don't think you have to start with the scoreboard. You just start with the pace. Again, from the 3rd inning on, Blue Jays controlled every second of this game on the mound, in the box, in the dugout. Scherzer's line doesn't scream dominance. 5 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. But he did dictate that tempo. And after Naylor's solo shot in the 2nd, Scherzer changed his rhythm entirely. He stopped leaning so heavily on his fastball, started mixing speeds and locations, working both edges of the zone to keep hitters off balance. He opened up counts with breaking balls, elevated the heater just enough to change eye levels, and used the changeup to steal timing. Seattle's hitters really never found a steady look on Scherzer, and you could see it in the contact profile. After the initial homer from Naylor, the Mariners didn't square up another ball until the 6th. Their contact quality just fell off a cliff. Weak liners, jam shots, and mostly rollovers. And no overpowering stuff, just it was his sequencing. Scherzer wasn't blowing anyone away. He was just playing chess at 93 miles an hour. And then you look at, again, defensively, the Jays backed him up cleanly in the middle innings. The infield positioning was sharp, cutting off would-be singles and forcing soft contact into outs. Barger, sliding catch in the right center to end the 6th. Again, capping another inning where Seattle's best contact turned into was nothing. And the Jays' prep work was obvious as well. Every fielder looked like they had read the spray chart up and down, and got to give it to John Schneider. His bullpen management, for once in this series, he was measured and confident. He wasn't chasing matchups. He built momentum, and once Scherzer exited, the relievers were able to pound the zone, keep Seattle reactive instead of hunting pitches, and Seattle was never able to find the inning that they were waiting for, and that's what control in the postseason looks like. The Blue Jays didn't overpower the Mariners. They just simply outpaced them. Every inning, every sequence was about rhythm and restraint. And that's how a slight underdog starts to look like a favorite, because the Jays didn't just win Game 4. They managed it, and now they have a shot to win this series. And because by the time Seattle realized that they were down, it was already too late. And Toronto was well on their way to writing the ending of this game and possibly this series. And apart from Mad Max Scherzer's memorable performance on the mound, if you had to pick one swing on the night that truly turned the tide of this game and this series, this was it. Toronto is leading 5-1. The margin is very solid but not insurmountable. Seattle very much still had hope. The stadium was tense, but still, the crowd was still very much into it. Vlad Guerrero steps into the box. Bizzardo delivered a pitch. The ball riding on spin, staying in the middle. And that's when he showed exactly why he's special. The crack of the bat said it all. Lifted high and carried with enough backspin to cling to the air before clearing the right center wall. StatCast records it at 103.5 miles per hour off the bat, 359 feet, 27 degrees of launch angle. Just pure power. And you saw the outfielders move and then freeze because it looked like a flyout, but sure enough, Vlad was able to get a good enough amount of backspin on it, and that was the dagger. Toronto goes up 6-2. The game completely tilts. The narrative of this series completely flips. The numbers caught up. At that moment, I believe the win probability for Toronto surged to about 94%. The bookmakers, the analysts, all read it the same way. That homer also carried the weight beyond just tonight. It was Vlad's fifth of the postseason, breaking the Blue Jays' single postseason record previously shared with Jose Bautista. It also pushes the Blue Jays to reach a franchise record of 17 home runs in a single postseason. And man, oh man, the 2025 postseason for Vlad Guerrero so far, hitting 429 average, 21 at bats, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 1.315 OPS. And for the Blue Jays, from that swing onward, the question wasn't who would win, it was when. And Scherzer carried the team. The bullpen came in and shut it down, and Seattle was never able to mount a credible threat again. One swing, one moment on the field, in the crowd, in the playoff bracket, in the stats, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. delivers. So let's talk about the numbers, because as much as this postseason has been about clutch hits and big innings, it's also been about some pretty interesting betting trends. And the deeper we get into October, the more that these trends are starting to make more and more sense. The big picture in the championship series, since 2022, road teams 24-17 in the championship series. That's a 58% hit rate. Underdogs 21-20. Obviously a coin flip, but still very profitable with plus money on all of those. When you combine the two, road dogs 17-13 in the championship series since 2022, cashing at 57%. Now look at the totals. The over 23-17-1 in the championship series since 2022. Runs scored in the first inning 24-17. So these are not coincidences. This is the byproduct of how October baseball has completely changed. It's happening mostly because parity in scouting means that no team really gets to surprise anyone anymore. Every hitter, every bullpen arm, all of it is mapped out in advance with, advanced stat metrics and advanced scouting. When teams are that evenly matched, home field advantage really doesn't mean what it used to. And then when you add in the bullpen fatigue from these deep playoff runs with the expanded playoff format, reduced travel gaps, and hitters coming out with ultra aggressive approaches early in these games, it is a recipe for road success and early scoring. So when you see these trends, I don't think that it's luck or an aberration. Definitely not an anomaly. This is proof of the evolution of postseason baseball. October has become basically a road game for probability in itself. But now let's narrow in on the Blue Jays specifically, because the Jays 3-1 on the road this postseason and 4-1 as underdogs. They've been making bettors money every single time they've traveled, and that's continued right through this series in Seattle, a ballpark where they're now 5-0 this year, and all 5 of those games coming in as underdogs. The over has hit in 6 of their 8 playoff games. Runs scored in the first inning has also cashed in 6 of 8. Again, these are not random numbers. It is directly tied to how this team plays baseball. Toronto's on-base percentage through the first 3 innings this postseason sits at .367 compared to the league average of .312. That is a massive gap. It means that they are consistently creating base runners early, driving up pitch counts and setting the tone before most of their opponents have even settled into the game. And the Jays also, unlike many of previous teams that they've put together, they're not swinging wildly, right? They're grinding for contact. Their first inning approach is very disciplined. They force starters to show their best stuff off the hop. And when they get that mistake, they do not miss. That's why the run scored in the first inning prop has cashed in the postseason since the format has been altered. And this is not about chaos. This is about structure in this evolving, MLB postseason. What makes it even more dangerous is that Toronto doesn't tail off after those early innings as well. They keep applying pressure, and by the time the opposing starters are gone, the bullpens are already stretched thin, and that's where the overs start sneaking in late, 7th, 8th, 9th inning runs piling up as the Jays keep hitting line drives and working their counts. It's the kind of pattern you see in these teams that understand the math of postseason baseball. They don't chase momentum. They build inevitability, and they play within their analytics. They stay patient and exploit every arm that relies on throwing strikes over missing bats. So when you look at these trends, 3-1 on the road, 4-1 as dogs, 6-2 to the over, 6-2 for the runs scored in the first inning. Again, it's not luck, it's the identity of this team. Toronto is a contact first team built on high leverage innings, and right now they're executing the exact blueprint that turns underdogs into favorites in the postseason. Then there's the specific matchup. Toronto is now 5-0 in Seattle this season. Every single one of those games comes as an underdog. The run scored in the first inning prop has cashed in 7 of 10 of those games, and the over in 8 of 10, with an average combined run total of 9.2 runs. This is not variance, this is matchup dynamics. Seattle's pitching staff is built around command. They rely on strike throwers, pitchers who get ahead in counts, work corners, and try to force soft contact. But Toronto is built to punish that exact approach. They lead all postseason teams in contact rate on pitches in the zone and have the lowest chase rate outside of it. So every time Seattle tries to challenge early, Toronto turns it into loud contact. It's the classic contrast, control versus contact. And right now, contact is winning. Even analytically, it checks out. The Mariners staff had the 3rd lowest walk rate in baseball this year, which is great in theory, but when hitters like Guerrero and Springer and Barger and Clement are waiting for mistakes, it's that control that becomes predictability. And the Jays know it, and they've built a game plan around it. And they don't need chaos. They don't need traffic inside. They just need to hit the pitches that they're getting. And Seattle is giving them plenty. So when you put it all together, the macro postseason data, the Jays team-specific performance, and the head-to-head matchup against Seattle, this story is very consistent. Road teams win because they travel light and play loose. Underdogs cash because the market still prices them in as old assumptions. And the Blue Jays right now are exploiting every inefficiency in front of them. And the books are going to adjust because they always do. But for now, this is what inefficiency looks like. And Toronto is walking straight through it because this team, they're playing, like I said, informed baseball. That's the difference you're seeing night after night. This isn't a team winning off emotion, although we had plenty of that tonight. They're not rallying on luck, and they're not just like feeding off the noise. They're winning because they know exactly who they are and how to handle most of the situations that they face. When you watch that dugout, right, it's calm, it's loose, they're having fun. There's no panic after giving up early runs. They just see it as really an opportunity. At the same time, they have their fun when they score, but they don't have massive celebrations. They just get right back to it. They move like a team that's been here before because they've built themselves for this exact environment. That's also not to say that they're robotic, because there's plenty of energy in that clubhouse, because again, we saw it tonight, but it's controlled, right? You show emotion, but you don't let the emotion control you. And we saw that tonight after Naylor's second inning homer that put Seattle ahead early. There was no visible frustration. Scherzer walked off the mound, sat down and started talking, his pitch sequence with Kirk. And then 2 innings later, they had the adjustment. And that's what composure in the postseason looks like. And you can see it in the numbers too. Toronto's strikeout to walk ratio on the road this postseason, 2.8 to 1, the best mark of any team that is still playing. And that tells you everything about their mindset. They're not expanding their zone. They're not pressing for results. They're making opposing pitchers earn every out that they're given. And when a team can stay that measured under playoff pressure, the results start to follow. They take the crowd out of games. They force starters into uncomfortable counts. And they wear down bullpens without ever needing the big inning. And that's why their trends like the overs, the first inning runs, the road wins, all tie back to something deeper than just form. It's a reflection of who they are and where baseball is going. And this version of the Blue Jays has definitely figured out how to turn analytics into more than that, into attitude. They don't react to the numbers. they respond to the game that's in front of them and use the numbers to help them. Other times I've been on the other part of this, other side of this argument where I've said, you have to call the game that's in front of you rather than using the numbers like as a blind reference. But these two games in Seattle, I can't really argue. That's where this edge has come from, both on the field and in the way they've made their adjustments, because composure correlates with winning in the postseason, and teams that manage volatility, manage vulnerability, manage, the background noise, manage the bad swings, and manage the momentum. That's the biggest thing. Those are the teams that tend to outperform their odds in small sample sizes like the postseason. And the Jays are doing exactly that. They're not chasing the emotion of the game. They're executing based on information. And that's what separates contenders from teams that just get hot. This isn't a spark, it's a system. Now, if you want to talk about the other side, because as sharp and composed as the Jays have looked, Seattle is coming apart at the seams. The biggest issue for the Mariners isn't their effort, it's exhaustion. Their bullpen's been stretched thin all series. Multiple relievers have been called night after night. And by the middle innings of Game 4, it was very clear that the tank is getting close to empty. Fastballs are missing, sliders losing their bite, and that usual command that you saw in the first two games of this series, and one of their strengths all season, it's not there. And you could see the pressure in the numbers, right? Seattle pitchers fell behind early in too many counts, and Toronto made them pay for it. The Mariners, they ranked among the league's best in first pitch strikes during the regular season. But that edge has completely disappeared here. Once they were pitching from behind, Toronto's lineup, patient and relentless, forcing mistake after mistake. And at the plate, the Mariners looked just as tight. They were chasing high heat, rolling over breaking balls, and popping up everything off speed. The approach that made them dangerous during the season and in their series against Detroit, it's just not there, at least in these two games. It's not that it's a lack of discipline under pressure. It's they're pressing, right? They're juiced. They want to perform, and it's not coming together. So they're trying to win the game with one swing of the bat. And for bettors and for those predicting these playoffs, this is where perception is not reality, right? Seattle keeps getting priced and analyzed and looked at like they're the 2023 version of this team, with like a low variance ball club with elite pitching and rhythm control. But this group has allowed traffic all series long, far too many base runners, far too many long innings, and no reset button when the bullpen doors open. And by the time Vladdy crushes that late homer, you can almost feel the air go out of their dugout. Whatever momentum Seattle had in this series has completely vanished. Seattle now is the team with their shoulders slumped. And the Mariners are starting to look less and less like contenders and more like a team out of gas, sudden, loud, and inevitable. The Blue Jays, 2 games away from a berth in the World Series. The markets love the myth of control. In October, it punishes it. And this series has been a reminder that, your command might win in April, but in October, it's the team that can handle chaos that manages to survive. And that brings us to Game 5, because the pivot point in this ALCS, the one game that decides who takes control of this series, Game 4 felt like that might have been it, but Game 5 is actually it. 2-2 in the series. For bettors, this isn't just another playoff game. It's a full-on rematch with numbers. The likely pitching matchup is the same that mirrors Game 1. Kevin Guzman for Toronto against Bryce Miller for Seattle. The first meeting told us plenty about what to expect. Guzman, absolutely not flawless, but once he started trusting that splitter, he found his rhythm. Miller's four-seamer, meanwhile, hard as it comes, stayed a little too true for a lineup as contact-oriented as the Blue Jays. The Jays jumped on him early, forcing Seattle to bullpen before the 5th. Odds makers have opened this one nearly even, with Toronto actually just slightly shaded, so this will be the first game that they go into Seattle this season as the favorite. Toronto at about minus 115, minus 118. Well, Seattle about minus 105, minus 108. The total sitting around 7.5 runs, essentially a pick 'em, a reflection of how the market isn't really able to find that clear edge in this series. Now, this matchup, like, let's start with Kevin Guzman. His splitter has long been one of the most effective out pitches in baseball, regularly producing elite whiff rates. When he's locating it, he can neutralize right-handed batters like Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh, forcing weak contact and keeping barrels off balance. The risk here is always his command early, specifically, right? When he falls behind early, hitters can sit on the fastball and make him work deeper into counts. I think that if he can get through, the first 6 batters and keep his rhythm, that we might be able to see him start to roll. Bryce Miller, on the other hand, he leans heavily on that four-seamer and developing a slider. It's a solid mix when he's commanding both, but the Jays, they've already shown that they can time that heater of his, and unless Miller gets more life on that fastball or mixes in some off-speed pitches more effectively, it could be another short outing for him. One under-the-radar factor here is the bullpen usage. Over the past couple of games, the Blue Jays relievers have thrown slightly fewer pitchers than Seattle's. It's not a huge gap, but enough to matter this late in October. The Jays' key arms, they're rested and ready. From a betting standpoint, here's the breakdown. Money line, -115. The Jays have performed well in tight price spots and look slightly fresher heading into this one. Like I said, 7.5 on the total. Both teams have leaned towards early offense throughout the postseason, and neither have looked untouchable in game one. Again, run scored in the first inning, yes, it's going to sit around +110. I think that could offer value. Both lineups tend to attack early, as I've said, especially when the matchup is familiar. This will be the first rematch, pitching match of the series. And many of the analytical models see in this game as close to even, with no really clear favorite. But as we know, baseball isn't math alone. As we know, it's rhythm, it's timing. And in the postseason, more than ever, it's adjustment. And right now, Toronto looks steadier and far more adaptable, while the Mariners have been playing catch up. I don't think this isn't just about momentum anymore. It's about who adjusts first. And for the moment, the edge is definitely tilting north. The Blue Jays look to be the side here. Before we wrap this up, I just want to keep it simple. Tomorrow, I feel like you can count on one thing. Somebody is going to be scoring a run in the first inning. And again, that's not a feeling anymore. That's the math. 6 of the Jays' 8 playoff games this October have seen a run scored in the first inning, one way or another. 7 of 10 matchups with Seattle this year, too. And if history is any guide, 24 of the last 41 championship series games since 2022 have opened with a run before the anthem echo has faded. So, yeah, you can almost pencil it in. The Jays have made the first inning a weapon in this postseason. It's not about luck. It's about pressure for them. They get traffic early. They force pitches up. They make starters uncomfortable before the seats even get warm. So you can feel that energy from pitch one. Springer setting the tone, and Vlad waiting to get coiled. And when he finally gets something middle and flat, it's just not a hit. It's a reflection of this playoff run. And his swing has changed the tone of entire games in this run. And I think he's got more in him. And that's what's going to make tomorrow's game very fascinating. Guzman versus Miller again. Miller's fastball is as good as ever, but it's predictable. And Toronto doesn't guess, right? They study. They know their quadrants. They know their timing. They've already seen him once before, so you can bet that they'll be ready to ambush if he tries to get ahead early. One mistake up, and it might leave the yard before the crowd even gets to sit down. As I said, as for the total, 7.5. We've seen what happens when you play the under in this series. It's safe until it's not. It just takes one big inning, one misplayed fly ball, one bullpen door opens, and suddenly this game pace flips on its head. So tomorrow, we'll sit back, expect some early traffic, expect that first inning run. The numbers say it's still coming, so maybe even expect Vlad to go yard again. Because right now he's seen beach balls, but more than anything, I would expect a shutdown response from the Blue Jays here, because that's where we're at. Faith of the fan base, meaning the math of the game, patterns meeting the pressure, And when we get to sit back and watch it all shake out, the Jays aren't the ones chasing the story here anymore. They are the story. So this is Spark Sports Blue Jays Playoff Edition. I'll be back tomorrow night to talk Game 5. Thank you for watching. Talk to you later.